Hey everyone, so for today's video I wanted to walk you through the world of liquid bronzers. So when I was brainstorming videos for this week, I realized that in my whole cream bronzer collection that I didn't really have a lot of liquid bronzers, and I realized that part of the reason that that is the case is that a lot of brands really don't come out with liquid bronzers. I'm not sure if it's just because they feel like they would be less user-friendly or what the case may be, but I see a lot of brands coming out with like bronzing primers, like all over the face bronzing items before you put on makeup, but not a lot of products to apply over makeup. But nevertheless, today's video we're going to talk about 4 different formulas that I have. This is all a part of 1 week of cream bronzer, and if you have no idea what that is, it's all things cream bronzer this week. I'm talking about holy grail formulas, disappointing formulas, giving you tips to apply, and just generally doing a lot of different comparisons. It is all things cream bronzer this week. I'm really excited, so make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you are excited, and let's jump in. Okay, so let's first start with a formula that kind of inspired this whole video. I was wondering whether or not to just do a dedicated video on this or what I was going to do, but this is the Glossier Solar Paint. I recently picked this up. I have the shade Flare, and it's what I'm wearing today. I find that this shade in particular, if you are fair with more neutral undertones, then you will probably really like this shade. For me personally, I find the shade to be quite flattering on me. The Glossier Solar Flare, I was immediately intrigued by because it was a shimmery bronzer, and what I'm noticing throughout like my entire bronzer collection is that a shimmering bronzer is really not something that a lot of brands come out with, and I think that's just because it's kind of polarizing. There are certainly some more shimmery formulas that just look uneven on the skin. They can kind of highlight texture. The shimmer in here, in and of itself, it's not really a shimmer. It's more of a kind of shift or sheen. And honestly, when it's on my skin, and obviously I've only tried this shade, I haven't had the opportunity to try other shades, I don't really notice any glitter or shimmer. It really feels like the shimmer was added to kind of amp up the finish of this product and to give it luminosity, because this actually dries down quite a bit. It doesn't remain dewy in and of itself. It definitely has a dry down to it. So I almost feel like the shift that was added to this product was to give the appearance of luminosity while also offering the opportunity for the formula to set down and last a little bit longer. So getting back to the idea of this product and also the concept that I was talking about a little bit earlier, how I've just noticed that not a lot of brands come out with liquid bronzers, and how I can see it kind of being because liquid bronzers are a little bit less easy to use, possibly, and just people would maybe just gravitate towards a traditional cream instead. I think that Glossier has done a good job of making this easy to use, and I think packaging is certainly part of that. So it's new packaging with a doe foot applicator, and also a touch that I really liked is that this completely closes. Like you can kind of lock it into place, which I think is really nice. I don't know, to be able to use a liquid bronzer with a doe foot like this, it does make it much easier. But how does it blend and how does it work on the skin? So I really like the way that it looks on my skin. Honestly, I've tried to apply it a few different ways. I think it applies really well with fingers, but the only problem with using fingers is that eventually the product wants to set down and you might kind of pick back up the product if you're not being careful. The same thing kind of goes with the sponge as well, and I think that the sponge is actually more prone to doing that. So honestly, I think the best way to apply this is with a brush. My e.l.f. airbrush stipple brush does a really good job of applying this. I think it looks really nice and very natural up close. I like the texture because it's not super liquidy. It still has a nice emollients to it. It's very flexible, but then again, it still sets down on the skin. It still kind of melts down and becomes one with the skin. If you're familiar with the Cloud Paint formula, this is definitely a thinner gel cream, whereas the Cloud Paints are a little bit more creamy. Again, for me, I really like the shade Flare. My personal experience with the product and how it looks on me, like all of that is really positive. I'm going to keep using it and I really enjoy it. It just encapsulates the kind of no makeup bronzed look that I really associate with Glossier. But I can't help but still feel a little bit let down by this launch. I go back and forth between being kind of disappointed that they didn't just come out with the Glossier Cloud Paints but in bronzer form, and then also kind of being glad that they pushed themselves and came out with a different formula for this, again, because I like the formula. It looks really pretty on the skin, and again, this is not like putting shimmery product all over the skin whatsoever. At least with this shade Flare, this doesn't translate to me as a shimmery product. But that being said, if Glossier did come out with the Cloud Paints in a variety of different shades and undertones, and it was this really expansive shade range in that matte formula, I don't know, I feel like people would be really excited about it. Just my personal opinion, I feel like it could have just very easily been an extension of that brand, but maybe the crux of the issue isn't really that. The crux of the issue is that they didn't release enough shades for me to feel really happy completely about the launch, if I'm being honest. So just for that reason, I'm a little bit hot and cold about this launch. And funny enough, when I was kind of prepping for this video, I realized that I'm a little bit hot and cold about a lot of liquid bronzers. And here's another one. So this one from Iconic London, the sheer liquid bronzer. I was incredibly excited about this. So this is the shade Sunkiss. I really haven't tried a lot from Iconic London, but this item in particular, when I saw it, I pretty much immediately bought it when it released. And texture-wise, this has a really beautiful silky texture. It's not too dewy. It almost reminds me of the Milani Cheek Kiss liquid formula, except a little bit thinner. And when you're first applying this product, the texture really lends itself well to being blended, but unfortunately the pigmentation does not. Like, as a swatch, I feel like this bronzer is really pretty. Like, when I swatch it out on my hand, when I just tap it on the cheeks and don't really blend it out yet, I'm like, wow, I love the color. I think the color is really beautiful. I think the texture is really nice, just how thin and lightweight it is. But then you go to blend it out and this just completely disappears. I don't understand why I would want a product this sheer unless I wasn't wearing foundation. So if you're someone that doesn't like to wear foundation, I actually see this being a really beautiful product for that, because it does blend really nicely. And the little pigment that is left when you apply this, it does last. It doesn't just like completely vanish. Get it, they market it as a sheer bronzer, and I know not everyone wants a lot of pigment with their cream products, but it's just too sheer for me. Now, on the other end of the spectrum, this product is from Danessa Myricks, and it is the Vision Flush, and this is the shade Nutcracker. So I already have the shade Ballet Slippers, I believe, and I really fell in love with this formula when I tried that out. It's a liquid paint kind of product, and I feel like all of Danessa Myricks products last really well on the skin, which is another one of those things that I just love about her line. I love that she deals with more cream textures that also last long, because God knows there are a lot of cream textures that just don't last on the skin, and this was definitely an item I was really excited about. But I've definitely had a mixed bag of experiences with this, and I think it might be just because this shade is not great for me. I think it's a little bit too dark. And just to be clear, with the next two items, I don't even know if I would classify these as cream bronzers. I think they're more like cream contour products, so just keep that in mind. I appreciate the shade, but I think that because there's so much pigment with this, it's a little bit more difficult to work with. You have to be very intentional, and honestly, I just don't think it's as user-friendly as I would want. Honestly, I would rather go with some of her 24/7 cream colors and just use that as like a cream contour or a cream bronzer. I've done that before and just really loved the effect that it gave. So like, as a whole, I'm more likely to recommend those rather than this, just because it has been that kind of mixed bag of sometimes this looks good and blended and other times it just looks a little bit choppy and a little bit muddy. I can see you getting the hang of this, but when I already know that there are like the balm contours from Danessa Myricks, which I also really love, I'll talk about those later this week, or some of the cream colors, I'm just more likely to recommend those over this. And lastly, one more like contour product that I still get questions about. It's the Hollywood Contour Wand from Charlotte Tilbury. The Hollywood Beauty Light Wand is still easily top 3 favorite highlight product. And I can't remember how these came out, but I want to say that this came out after that. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember seeing this and almost immediately buying it because I have been wanting Charlotte Tilbury to come out with a cream bronzer because I am not a fan of the powder bronzers from her line, but I think that she would be able to formulate such a beautiful cream bronzer. And I will say that this is by far like the most natural cream contour that I've ever used. It blends beautifully and it really does have such a nice kind of gel liquid formula that sets down really nicely. It doesn't remain too tacky. It's sheer enough to blend, but not sheer enough that it's, you know, doesn't come out to anything. And as a whole, I really like the formula. Like, I think it's a good product for that reason, but I have a couple of complaints. One, I think that there can be more shades, and two, I'm just not a huge contour person. Let me know down below, like, would you buy this if there were more like true bronzer kind of shades with this formula? Because I definitely would. At the end of the day, none of these are bad products, but this is certainly not like my holy grail list of cream bronzers. I have so many other formulas that I'm really excited to share with you guys over this whole week. So make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you found it valuable, and I'll see you guys in my next one.